Hi, my name is Max. I've been putting off making this video for quite a while due to various reasons. As you can see from the topic of the video, I've been going through a period of gang stalking and it's still ongoing. I'm no longer in the country. I used to live in the United States. I'm no longer there. That's a blessing. I'm not saying that the gang stalking stopped, but it's noticeably lighter over here, but it's still there. It's clearly there. It's non-apologetically there. Um, Started off in the United States. I mean, I feel like, to be honest, I feel like I've been gang stalked my whole entire life. It's just like I didn't notice it. I blamed it on the, life inconveniences or just my luck. Um, I just thought of it as, oh, that's just how everyone goes through life. I never really gave it much thought. Um, but it was the my experience working at the hospital for special surgery in New York City. That was a wake up call from God. I feel like um, I can't talk about everything in one video, so I'm not going to be talking about my childhood or my life, not just yet. All what I'm going to mention is that I was born a Muslim. I renounced it because I felt that it wasn't for me. I became an atheist for a while, and after I woke up to this whole gang stalking and the fact that the world we live in is a matrix and it's not what it appears to be, it's at that stage, which was all within a year. It started all from August of 2024 and it kept going, snowballing basically. It was because of that that I embraced Lord Jesus Christ, and that's why I'm always thankful for the experience. As much as I hate it and as much as it scarred me, I still am thankful to the Lord for showing me the truth, because I could have just lived in ignorance and I could have ended up being a sinful person and end up in hell. It's better to awake late than never. So, like I've said, I feel that now that I think about it more in depth, I know that I've been targeted ever since I was a baby. I know that everything in my life was orchestrated. Um, but I'll get into that in another video. For this video, I'm going to explain. I'm going to go a little bit in depth in regards to the thing that woke me up to all this, which was my experience with my last employer, which was the Hospital for Special Surgery. They're also known as the New York Society for the Relief of the Ruptured and the Crippled. Um, so I was hired there in 2019. I worked as a medical interpreter. I did Arabic translations and interpreting for Middle Eastern patients predominantly. Um, when I first started, I was hired as a part-time. They call it part-time casual. It's essentially under 20 hours so that they could avoid giving you medical insurance and all the benefits. I got in and I started working. It was my first job ever in the United States. Prior to that, I worked in Saudi Arabia. So when I first started working, they kept throwing out like false promises, and I didn't even ask. They just kept telling me that, yeah, we're going to give you the full time immediately after the probationary period and whatnot. Of course, that never was the case. They never did it. Even though I proved myself and I participated, I did put in extra hours. I did extra things that I wasn't assigned to, and I proved my worth. But they never cared. But then again, I never really, begged for the position. I mean, I did ask them a couple of times just to remind them of the promise they made, but they played dumb. They essentially said that, oh, you read us wrong. We said that if there was a position, we would offer it, but clearly it wasn't the case. They said that they will give me the position and it was already there. The funny thing is, they kept hiring people, new people, completely new people, and even transferring a couple of people from other departments. So they did have the position, they just didn't want to offer it to me. I worked with them for a year. My employees, my employees, I meant my coworkers, they were, there were some friendly people, and there were some neutral. One of the more interesting characters was this Korean kid. His name was Daniel. The first day I arrived, he just sat next to me and he was supposed to go over some stuff with me, and he immediately told me, "Just so you know, I don't like Asians." I didn't confront him because I didn't want trouble from the first day. I just thought it was weird. I was like, I didn't ask to be your friend. And Other than that, the managers, they were friendly at first. But later, you'll discover that they're far from that. Far, far, far from it. But it wasn't later, even while I was with them. It was much later, towards the end of my employment with the company. So, anyways, at the end of the year, when I couldn't get a full time position, I started looking elsewhere. Throughout my experience working as the interpreter, I met a bunch of people from different departments and stuff and befriended them. So there was this one manager that helped me apply for this other position because before I met her, I applied to a bunch of positions and they never really replied to me or paid any attention to me or gave me any mind, as they say. So I talked to her randomly one day, and she just said to apply to this, and I did, and immediately I got an invitation to an interview, and I successfully managed to get into the position of patient access specialist, which was a full-time position. Um, Funny thing is, no longer than 2 months after I was hired, she was fired, and I asked, they wouldn't tell me the reason, and no one seemed to want to talk about it. She was just let go. So when I started off working as a patient access specialist, the people on my floor, they were, how do I say, condescending. Like, it was two females. They would always talk to each other, ignoring me completely. And when I ask questions, at first in the beginning they were friendly and they kept they helped, like they showed me the way and everything. But as I excelled and I started working and they saw my abilities and typing and whatnot, they started acting really aggressively towards me. Like, they would clearly make it look like they didn't want to help me, like they didn't care for me. One of them even started harassing me to the point where I had to report her because she kept like calling me nerd, yelling at me, and just throwing out mean jokes. uh, she would stop talking to me, ignoring my request, especially at a time where I was still learning. So I would ask her questions. She would completely ignore me, even though she was in charge of answering my questions. So I had to report her to my manager, and I think that's the trigger. The minute they found out that I'm the type of person that would not let something unjust set aside, they started paying extra close attention to me, I guess. Um, so from there, I transferred to another place, and from that place, which is in Western Manhattan, I found a position in Brooklyn, which was for patient access specialist part tier two, and I applied to that. I was already a patient access specialist tier two at that point, so I applied for the exact same position just in Brooklyn because I lived in Brooklyn. So um, I got interviewed. Everything went well. Everything went smooth. I asked questions. I asked about expectations. They made it sound like everything that I did at my last position, which was in Western Manhattan, was it's the exact same thing. It's just a different setting. And they kept making it sound easy. They said that, oh, Brooklyn is a lot lighter. The people are a lot more friendly. Blah 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 blah. Um, so I took the position, and upon arrival, things weren't as they promised, and you can see you could see everything in detail in an article that I wrote. It's called "Nightmare at HSS" or the Hospital for Special Surgery. It's in my channel description. I mentioned everything in more detail there, but let's just put it this way. They trained me on an entirely different position, a higher tier, because I applied for tier 2 and they trained me for tier 3, which is a whole higher pay. It's like $3 an hour more, or if anything. They trained me for that, and although they should have paid me um, with the higher rate, they completely ignored that. I worked for them for 2 months training for tier 3, and they did not pay me for tier 3. They paid me for tier 2. And throughout the training, they were extremely micromanaging everything. Like, they were hovering over me essentially, and they prematurely judged me and rated me. And there were so many things that they did that was wrong. Um, as I said, it's in the article. It's really difficult for me to remember off the top of my head everything, but a couple of the stuff that really irked me, I'll say it right now. It's how they had this stupid rule where they said that you have to answer the phone call within 2 rings. Anything later than 2 rings would be unacceptable. That's one thing. Another thing is, I applied for a vacation and she said that, oh, you have to apply a week in advance. So I told her to call it off because I don't need it anymore. I can apply now for a week later, but she insisted that I take it. It's fine, and it won't be used against me. Funny thing is, upon the premature rating, essentially, she mentioned both of these along with a whole bunch of other pitiful excuses. Um, she said that I took a vacation without asking her, despite the fact that I said I didn't need it anymore. But she forced it on me, and then she uses it against me. The whole phone call situation. I did skip a couple of calls, if not three, but then I mentioned that everyone does it, and I mentioned that my coworkers sometimes leave the desk or leave the phone call ringing until it gets to the answering machine, and she would say, "Oh, we were testing you." Ridiculous. There are a whole bunch of other petty excuses, and not once have they admitted to the fact that they're training me on a position that's not what they promised me, and they haven't paid me for it, and the fact that they were rating me prematurely. They didn't even mention how I was doing really well for the short period of time, because I renewed a whole bunch of insurances. I picked up everything, snap, snap. I was basically engaging in all of their tasks. All this, and I was doing 6-day weeks for 2 consecutive weeks per month. Um, so I, when they did that, I confronted the manager and I talked to her about how unfair I thought everything was, and I even talked to her about the whole rate and how I'm not getting paid for it. Um, Immediately after that, like no longer than a week later, or at most a week and a half, they invite me into another meeting. It's really premature because it's like 3 months for the for the evaluation. They take me in within like 2 months and a week, and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, you failed the training, so you can do another training phase with us." By the way, there was an HR personnel on call, like on the video interview thing, video app. Yeah, so she was saying that he was from HR, so she was saying that I basically failed the training. They're willing to give me, because of their kindness, they're willing to give me like a second training phase. But if I failed the second one, they would kick me out. But then the HR personnel was like, alternatively, we're generously offering you, that's what he said, generously offering you a chance to work in Manhattan for patient access specialist tier 2. And if I wanted that one, I would have to transfer immediately before starting the second training phase. So I immediately picked that one because I knew that they were going to fail me regardless. I did great, and I'm not saying this just to show off. If you were to look at my productivity in all the positions that I worked from the minute I started, even in that part-time position, I was doing way above average, way above average. To give you an idea, my productivity was like 500%. At highs, I would get 1,000%. I was like way over the average. The average productivity is like barely 100%. So just to give you an idea, and not once have I asked for a promotion. Not once have I asked to be recognized. Not once have I asked to be even have an increase in pay. So for them to have the audacity to accuse me of not passing when they didn't even offer me the full evaluation period, and when they didn't acknowledge the good points that I actually did, that was a red flag. So I thought there's no point in continuing under them because they would fail me a second time just like they failed me the first. It would be a waste of time. So I picked the second option, which was to go back to Manhattan. I didn't even feel like explaining, oh, you didn't evaluate me for the full 3 months, so that's unfair, because I knew that it was all planned. I knew that they were all in on it. HR is never for the employee. So bit the bullet, and I requested to be transferred back to Manhattan. And yeah, I never got paid, by the way. So, I never got paid for the higher rate, I mean. So, I go back to Manhattan. They were already on to me. I think that the whole company is an evil organization. They're Masonic or some stupid secret society elite run trash institution. Because, as I said, from the minute I reported everything, I reported the bullies, they started treating me differently. So, upon arrival in Manhattan, back in Manhattan, uh, like the first thing they do is I go up there. They're supposed to be team leads that introduce everything to you, run you through everything. Even if you're a former employee, they would still do that for you. Even if you're a current employee, they would still do that to you. They would orientate everything and give you documents, show you where things are, ask you know how jobs are. I go there and there's no one there to show me the ropes. I was left alone. Uh, the good thing is, I mean, I already knew what the position was about, so I just started doing things and I started looking for things. I started asking people where this was, where that was. The team leads didn't even come in until like the end of the first week, but at that point I already knew everything and I was already working. I was already getting into the flow. So they start. I felt that they were trying to trigger me into complaining so that they would have an excuse to basically kick me out or punish me. But I never gave them the chance to complain. So, how did they do it? First off, they wouldn't send someone to help me consistently. Like a day, someone would come for an hour, another day, someone would come for 3 hours, but I was left for the majority of the rest of the day, which was, I think, 6 hours, not 6 hours, 5 hours, or 4 hours left alone on a pretty busy floor. And this was before I was even introduced to anything. So when they saw that I was catching up and I was doing well, they start sending in patients extremely early. Like I would arrive at 7:30. My shift I believe starts at 8 or started at 8. I would get there at 7:30 and there would be a line of patients waiting for me to be checked in. So I check their schedules and it clearly shows that some of them have that one appointment for the entire day, and and the appointment's not until 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Yet they arrive at like 7:30. I'm like, I wondered like why would they arrive this early, especially since no one's going to be seeing them. Um, the doctors are not going to see them that early, and it's not like just one person. It's like a whole bunch of them. Like some of them had appointments that wasn't going to start until 3, and they didn't have anything else before for that entire day, and they would arrive at 7:30. So they did that for a while, and why would they arrive at 7:30? Because they know that that's the time frame where I would be alone. Because they wouldn't send my coworker in until much later, like 10 a.m., 11 a.m., sometimes even 1 p.m. It's random and sporadic. So I would arrive with a line waiting for me. As I said, my productivity was always high, so I was a quick typist, so I checked them in, no problem. And I never complained. I knew that they were trying to get a reaction from me because this is not natural. I worked for them for 2 years, 3 years maybe, and this was never an instance. People would complain. Like, I had a coworker that complained about having like 3 patients coming in at the same time, and this was with 2 coworkers. So three of us working, and she was complaining, and they leave me with like 10 checking in at once. Um, so it was clearly a trigger. It was they were trying to get a reaction from me, which I never gave them. So I checked them in, no problem. Um, People started approaching me. You know, the people that I worked with initially, the service excellence staff, they were friendly with me, some were neutral. They start all appearing and having the same, I would call it evil demeanor. Like, they would come in and look at me real aggressively with concern and anger at the same time. They would do something like this. That's the best I can explain it. Some of them would come in, not mention a single hi. They would start like, "Oh, I like my job. Do you like yours?" It was odd. Like, it was just strange, 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 strange. Like, you would feel this animosity. You'd feel this aggression. And I always wondered, at first, I was like, when one of them approached, I was like, okay, maybe they never liked me. But when all of them started doing the same thing, red flags started kicking in my head. But I never thought that it was anything like massive, like gang stalking or anything. I just thought that it was hospital based. This was well before I knew anything about gang stalking or anything about secret societies or anything like that. I just thought that the hospital didn't like me or didn't care for me, so they would try to eliminate me. Just that innocent. But it wasn't a case, and it got much, much worse later on, especially after I left them. But let me mention what happened at the hospital. So those people started acting really aggressive. The team leads, which I covered for a whole bunch of times, start acting mean and aggressively towards me. They would stand behind my back, stare, and look me down as if they're trying to do something, as if they're trying to literally intimidate me. Throughout all this, I never complained. I never initiated anything because I knew that they were trying to get this reaction from me, which I never gave them. So, as this whole chaos was going on my floor, which was the third floor, it's in a building called ERPB, if you really care to know. Um, it's in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So, the floor that I worked at, the third floor, there was this meeting room. It was always empty. Like, it was pretty much deserted. No one would go in. I would eat my lunch there on a daily basis. Why is it that when I started like proving myself and checking in all these patients, there's like a whole bunch of people coming in with suits. It's odd. Like they would all walk in at once, discuss something, and they would look at me with aggression. Like they would look at me like they're. Some of them would look at me with aggression. Others would look at me like I'm a freak. You know, they would walk in, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. They would come out, give me the same stare, and then get in the elevator and go away. They would do it almost like 4 times a week, 3 times a week, minimum 3 times a week. And besides them, doctors would start going in for meetings. I mean, not just doctors from my floor, but doctors from all over, from the same building, from other buildings. Staff from other buildings would go in. At one point, one of those people in suits, I don't know how a conversation started between me and him, but he introduced himself and said that he was a national security, a member of the national security. I never thought about it back then. I thought it was just something related to security at the hospital, but I found out what national security meant much later, which was too late because I already left them at that point. But anyways, so that's happening, and when they saw that I wasn't giving them any reaction, that's when they started kicking things off. Like they took it to a whole different level. Um, all those patients that arrived become aggressive. They start acting like they're entitled, they're in a rush, they need me to check them in quick, they would give me the looks, they would try to rush me, uh, they would look at me with aggression, they would talk behind my back, I can hear them whisper about me. When they're seated, they would look at me with aggression, they keep looking at me, like really, really like looking at me, staring me in the eye. I wouldn't look them back, but when I turn my head from time to time, I can see that they're still fixated on me. You know. At some point, there were patients that were literally mocking me. Like someone was said like bad hair day, or like, oh, do you only type at home also? Like, do you have a life? Do you do stuff outside of work? You know, stuff like that, and petty stuff. But again, I would not give them a reaction. I reported it to my manager, my direct manager, who kept telling me that, oh, we're looking into it, we're gonna do something, but they never do anything. They were completely in on it. Everything was planned. I feel everything was scripted. Everyone was in on it except for me. You know, towards the last month, I noticed. Not last month, last couple of months. Some of the patients would follow me around, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, they would follow me around the campus of the hospital. Like I would go from building to building. They would be walking behind my back. Other times, I'd go to the subway station, and they would be following me there. Um, the little grocery store around the corner that I always go to, uh, the cashier that worked there was always friendly with me. He always greeted me. He always talked to me about my day and how everything was going and about my job because I knew him well before. I knew him from the minute I started working for the hospital. So I knew him for 4 years, but towards the last couple of months, he started acting completely off. Unlike the rest, he wasn't acting aggressive, but he seemed concerned and threatened. Like he kind of looked scared or worried or something, like as if someone was putting a gun to his head. And whenever I walk into the store, I would see two employees from HSS. You would know them from the badges. Whether it's standing, both of them are in the front, one in the back, one in the front, they're there. So I kind of connected the dots. I figured they're probably spying or they probably said something to him, and that's why he's acting. So I wouldn't talk to him. But I could see the change in behavior, the fear and everything, the shift. So I just brushed it off. And it was on August 11th or 12th. I couldn't remember. I woke up that day. Um, I was completely frustrated. I had this mental breakdown. I would call it panic. Um, I just couldn't take it anymore. I felt that it wasn't worth the amount of money I was making. Like I knew what they were up to. I knew that they weren't obviously going to give me any promotion or any chance at climbing the ladder because they were clearly trying to knock me down or kick me out. So I acted on impulse and I quit my job then and there. I just sent a text message to my manager and I said I wasn't showing up that day and I resigned. Funny thing is, she replied in the most nonchalant way. She was just like, "Okay, fine," you know. Um, right after I quit, a whole bunch of things transpired. There's the whole incident with my roommates, how my mom took it, and what happened with them. It would take a whole different video to just talk about that. But um, let's just put it this way. Within a month or so, I decided to upload the article that I mentioned. Again, it's in my channel description. And from that minute, everything got amped up like at least 10 times worse. And I'm gonna make a separate video on this, explaining how things got out of hand outside of work when I was no longer employed by the company. But I believe that the article that I uploaded that exposed things about them and their mistreatment, their unfairness, have caused all this. And yeah, I'll definitely create a second video. So please subscribe and click a like if you thought any of this was useful or entertaining to you. Thank you.